Hi, I'm Jennet Ingle, the 5-Minute Read Maker. Listen, if you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and click subscribe. You can click the little bell too to notify you when I drop new episodes. This is going to help you to always know when I'm putting new things out, and it's going to help everybody to be able to find my channel more easily and make better reads. What you're about to see is a Read Repair Shop episode. I take Karen's reads, which I've literally never seen before, and I work on them until they are better, and I talk about some of the issues that she's having with the reads. I think there's a lot of really fertile information in this episode. I talk about the overlap of the blades and why it's important. I talk about the structure of the rooftop. I take a read with almost no corners at all and recover it into something that really plays. So I hope you enjoy it and find it helpful. Hi Karen, I'm looking at these 3 reads and I'm finding them really interesting and I'm having a good time looking at them. I think you're really on the right track in a lot of ways. There's one, you have 3 very different reads going on here, but there's one thing that's sort of consistent between the 3 that I want to talk about first, which is that you've got quite a pronounced overlap in terms of the 2 blades of the reed being offset. And for me, they're offset in what looks like the wrong direction, but because I always aim for this rather than this. And yet I'm looking at the direction of your wind here, the direction of your crossover, and it's opposite from mine. So I have a curiosity that I would like to ask you about. Are you winding left-handed with the reed in your right hand, overhand like so? Or are you winding with the reed in your left hand like me, but rather than overhand like me, you're winding underhand? And if so, I wonder if that negates my criticism here, right? Because the reason that I want my reeds offset this way is that because when I wind like a right-handed person overhand, like so, it forces those blades to be closer and tighter together, which really tightens up the opening. And if I get a reed, which sometimes I do, that's just gone a little bit backward, like so, then all of my winds force those blades farther and farther apart, and then I end up with an opening that gets kind of shrunken, a little bit small. And I feel like that is a thing that I'm definitely seeing on these reeds. They look to me like they're offset the wrong way. This one's an exception, but we'll talk about it in a sec. But the openings seem kind of small, and I feel like the blades of the reed want to continue to slip, and the overlap is fairly pronounced. So I guess this is just something to be really conscious of when you're winding. Make sure that you are, that however you're winding, you are winding against the way those blades are overlapped, and maybe see if you can overlap them a little bit less while still getting something consistent for you. So that's thought 1. And then thought 2, I noticed it especially on your 2 turquoise reeds, that we've got some damage here on the side of the rail right below the heart. And this is a really common thing, especially on the right-hand side. For some reason, people really like to dig in right there. And I feel like as soon as we disrupt the bark right in this area, we're really sort of chopping the reed in half almost, so it's a little bit harder to get good vibration. Over on this side, you can see, even though it's not the same level of damage, I no longer see bark in this area, and I feel like I should. And this is not totally consistent because I think your purple reed is no, I see the same damage. So that's another thing to really pay attention to. As you're scraping, just look at what your knife is doing on the right-hand side of the reed right below the heart. So that's an overall comment. You complained that the reed number 1 here has a squeak when you play it, and it feels a little too alive, which I totally get. When I play it, it has a crow, but it's a little hard to find the depth in that crow, and there's a little bit of a buzziness, and there's a little bit of a, there's not a lot of depth, especially in the uppermost register. So as I get a plaque in, what I'm seeing is that your tip, I like the way that you've made a nice steep rooftop here, but once you're in the tip, there's really not a lot of gradation from thinnest over here to thickest over here and vice versa. I find that the middles of your tip are kind of just the same amount of thick as the as the same amount of thin as the sides of your tip. And I even feel like on this side, I'm seeing like a thin place here and here, like moats right above the rooftop. And I think those are all factors in why you can't seem to get any depth and why the resistance is feeling a little bit not comfortable for you. And since you are nice and long on this reed, your rooftop does start at just a hair above 65, but then it's quite steep and it goes up. And I also notice a little bit of a lack of symmetry, right? It's steeper on the right than on the left. And that holds true on both sides. You've got a steepness there and a shallowness there. So your rooftop is like that rather than being like that, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do to this reed specifically is just bring the peak of that rooftop down a notch in order to remake this transition area and try to build some slope all the way to the tip. So I'm taking your exact gutter but re-angling the roof. And as I work up into the tip, I'm definitely trying to stay strongly on the right-hand side. Then over here, I'm going to lower your gutter a little bit. And scrape up to the corner. Let me just clean off what I did over here. And now I'm going to try it again. Other side, same game. Slightly lowering the angle on the right-hand side, making sure that the side of the tip is the thinnest part. Slightly lowering the entire rooftop on the left. And let's see what that did, just that alone. I mean, obviously we've dropped the crow a lot. I'm still hearing a little bit of a high sound in that crow that I don't love. But now I'm going to clip. Sorry, I didn't mean to take it out of frame. I'm going to clip a little. And see what I just did. So I'm getting a little bit more depth, but it's not where I want it to be yet. As I play it, I feel like what I want is for the windows to be more open, and I want to be careful about that because of the damage we've already got over here. But I'm perceiving that I want more depth, and it looks to me like your heart is plenty thin enough. We're getting the vibrations through into the heart nicely. So let's go behind the heart a little bit, and I specifically want to work sort of more toward the center than the side. This area, right below the heart. Your windows are long, which is not a problem, which means your heart's sitting normally, that's fine. But it feels like there's an area of almost thickness right here on the left, and certainly on the right, your angle has just gone off far too much to the right. So I'm going to try to open up the sound and find more resonance and depth by cheating that window toward the center. And this is going to mean that I take away some spine, especially in this case because I'm trying so hard to stay away from that. So hopefully we're not going to get too burned by that. I know it looks like I'm just making a mess here, but what I'm trying to do is not re-emphasize this sort of gap you've got over on this side. I want to get rid of this fuzzy here. I'm going to leave that fuzzy for now because I think it's a little too scary. What if I do this? There we go. I'm going to leave that for the moment. Work on the windows on this side. And I'm really digging kind of deeply, right? I'm just lightly dig right behind the window and then brush away the fuzzy. Same over here. Cheating toward the center. brushing away the fuzzies. And let's see what that just did. Well, I've lost my crow, but I'm not discouraged yet. I mean, I a little bit feel like, considering what we've got here, which is quite a small opening, possibly due to the strong overlap, and we've got the damage right in here, which is going to tend to limit the vibrations because it's not easy for the reed to all flow together. I think this is an improvement. I feel like the only thing that would make me feel better is if this wasn't so lumpy back here. What happens, since we've already got the reed sort of divided in half, if we sort of try to take some of that wall at the bottom of the heart away? And that wall at the bottom of the heart is characteristic of my reeds. I tend to leave it, but I don't feel like it's helping you in this moment. So when I try to take off that wall at the bottom of the heart, I imagine it's sort of like trying to move a stone wall like 3 feet away along a pasture. Like if you need to redraw your boundary lines, you're not going to start with the bottom stone. You're not going to dig to the bottom of the stone and then try to move the whole thing. You're just going to start at the top. Take the top layer of that wall away, oh so lightly, and with a little bit of angle. Okay, that feels a little better, looks a little better. I'll do the same thing over here, just quickly. Helping to minimize that really strong barrier between the windows and the heart. Trying to get the reed communicating through its whole length. There we go. We've got a hint of a crow coming back. I'm going to clip the tiniest bit. And that is a reed. That was a long time I spent on that one, but I think I won't be spending as long on the next ones. This guy, number 2. First of all, he's a little bit overwound. I think we've got the... yeah, it's perhaps one wind over here. So we've got a little bit of an issue with the cane being compressed just above the top of the staple. So that's often a fatal flaw. Then the other thing, you commented on your note, that number 2 looks bad but plays okay, but it is not responsive in the low register, which, looking at the corners of the tip, doesn't really shock me that much. Everyone loses corners from time to time, but there's some relatively severe damage here, and it is the corners of the reed that give you response for the most part. It's very hard even to beep this reed. And when I pop it back on the oboe, it does play, but I have to push it good and hard to get it going. So I would like to see if we can recover this reed, because I feel like this is a good lesson for people. The reeds in my own case, they are not perfect in their corners. They usually look a little better than this, but not always and not exclusively, and I feel like we can get this back. Because here's what else I'm noticing. I can see why, when you start scraping up in the corner and you do that much damage, you then get scared and walk away from and step away from the corners. But what I'm seeing is a ton of bulk in the heart itself, here, and here. So on the left-hand side of the heart and both sides. And I'm feeling that when I start to play it, right? The tip is thin. We have the same sort of moat or divot area right above the rooftop that we did on the previous reed, which I think is not helping you really. And that's it. Your back and windows are better than on the other side. So what I want to do is lower your rooftop about a millimeter, maybe a full millimeter, especially because over here, if we've got an extra millimeter of space, maybe we've got a little bit more material that we could classify as tip, and maybe we'll be able to clip back a little bit. Meanwhile, I'll be building in a transition so that we have a better chance of sloping out to the corner. So I'll thin the corner, I'll transition into your thin place, I'll lower the whole rooftop, which should give us a little bit more vibrating tip, and I'll clip. Millimeter back. Being really, really careful. I'm just trying to set in that transition, that skateboard ramp, scooping from the heavy heart, and then almost just like petting the cane all the way up to the corner to make sure that the corner is the thinnest. Here's where our bad damage is, so I'm going to try not to cut off any more. And then I'm making sure that we've got thinness up here at the corner. Other side, same thing. Just take one step back from where your rooftop was and reset it with a scooping motion, thinning to the corner. Other side, same thing. Okay, let's see what that did. See, I've got a beep now that's pretty easy. I've got a crow of sorts. I'm going to go ahead and clip a tiny bit, and then I'm probably going to start messing with the heart. Well, not going to say it's fantastic yet. Let's go ahead into the, sorry, first of all, I'm just going to clean up what I did already, make sure the sides and the tip are the thinnest parts, because it's not quite there yet. I should have given you more disclaimer before I began this. I feel like with the slight overwind and the relatively dramatic damage to 3 out of 4 corners, like, we don't know if we're going to get this to be a reed, but we're going to try. I'm not afraid. Then I see that there's bulk here on the side. You can even hear it when I start to scrape. I find that the bark and that chalky stuff that's right under the bark is the noisiest thing to scrape. So when I scrape, you'll hear a little bit of rattle, and then when it goes away, we'll know we're in the good part of the cane. Did you hear it? Over here, I don't think you've got the same thing, but I'm just going to give a once over on the heart. Yep, and there was a little bit right at the side. Did you hear it? I mean, I have my concerns with this reed. My concerns being that I'm not sure we're going to make this be a reed. I'm going to leave this reed aside for a second because I kind of don't think that we're going to get a lot of improvement here, because I think our biggest issue is tip and corners. Okay, so did you notice that while I was saying I'm not going to scrape anymore, my knife sort of took over from my brain and just took a little tiny bit out at the very top of the windows on both sides. And immediately this reed improved. It has more of a crow now, more depth. I'm not saying that this read is going to feel satisfactory to you, because it's not, but it's interesting to me that even as my intelligent self was saying, nah, don't do any more, like my knife found something that it wanted to do. And of course, this is just about having years and years of experience making reeds, right? Like my hands almost know before my brain what the reed wants. I did make an improvement when I did that. And the way that you also get to this place is just make more reeds. Just make more reeds. Okay, this third guy feels the most promising to me because it feels the least damaged. What you commented is that it crows high and you've been scraping down the heart, but you're not sure when to stop, and it feels like you should stop now, but the crow is still too high. And yeah, I feel that that's up a little bit. And I also see that this guy's on a Pisoni tube, which I love the Pisoni tubes, you know I do, but they are heavier than these Sierra tubes that you've got the other two on. So a lot of what's going on, I think, is that the whole reed is not vibrating the way you're used to it vibrating, because this tube needs more thinness up here to compensate for the weight down here. And actually, I'm going to start on this reed uncharacteristically in the windows, because I feel like you've done a really nice job with the tip and the heart. I feel like I get a really easy beep. I feel like I get a crow, even though the crow is high. And I'm inclined to work that area right below the heart, the same area we did over here. I see that you're like trying to get that damage on the rail again, as you did on the first one. But I think it is not so serious. I think we've got a reed in here. So I'm scraping right along the side of the spine, and I'm even allowing my knife to like hurt the spine a little bit. I don't mind the spine as much. I'm both making sure that I'm thin right there behind your heart, and I'm smoothing out that wall that I've built behind the heart. I don't love how grainy this cane is. Is this cane that I sent you? If so, I'm sorry. It's coming. It's vibrating nicely. But I don't like how peely it feels right behind your heart. Which, you know what? I stand behind my cane, but not every piece of every batch is a gem, and sometimes you don't know till you start scraping. Okay, other side, same deal. Over here, like, I see your spine, which is beautiful. I see you've encroached a little over here, but I don't see a lot of transition, or a lot of depth in that area right behind your heart, and I think you need it. I think that's where a lot of depth and a lot of sweetness and a lot of resonance comes from in your reed. And we've dropped the crow, which was the goal. Tiny clip. So that reed, I played it once. It felt a little skinny to me. It felt a little up. When I pinched it open a little bit more, it got better. Why is it so closed? And now I'm looking at the measurement, and I am saying that your heart is too long. It's based at 60, which is fine, but your rooftop is up at about 66, 67. So I'm going to do that right now. Back 0.5 millimeter, making sure that the corners and the sides are the thinnest. So my impression, in other words, is that this reed is just a little too leggy. That alarm was warning me I have to get up and get ready for my concert, the one that's happening shockingly soon, and that you can see I'm not dressed for yet. But we've got this reed. Pinching it open a little bit. Why is it so closed? Why? the crow is much lower and nicer because we've moved the whole tip back a little bit. Clipping. Clipping again. For the closedness of these reeds, I want you to really look at the overlap and at how you're winding. Ooh, one more clip and I think this is a reed. So Karen, what we want here, what you need to look at, I think, as a generalization, is the overlap of these reeds. So try to not let it overlap so much. Consider how you are winding and make sure that as you wind, you're winding against the overlap rather than with it. And I'm not sure that you are doing it wrong. I just ask about it because it's a little confusing to me there. Your cut in from heart into tip is a little overly aggressive. In all three cases, I have backed up your rooftop by 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter and recut that scoop. So there's been a little bit too much thinness immediately north of the rooftop. And so we've sloped out to the corners. But also in all three cases, the back of the reed, I think, is your biggest issue. The rail on the right-hand side, be really careful right there, and the windows immediately below the heart need to be addressed more. But I think you've got some good reeds here, and I think you've got a really, really good start on this reed making. These are minor things. I've been talking about them for a while, but they're relatively minor things that you can fix really easily. Karen took part in this reed repair shop program as a part of my Invincible Oboist course, but even without joining my 10-week Invincible Oboist group coaching course, you can also send your reeds to me. Just check out my website, jennetingle.com, and you can find my reed repair shop service and send your own reeds to me to be analyzed, worked on, improved, and get your own personalized video just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.